Asian Society's online panel. So welcome everyone, and today it will be very interesting discussion on the theme of ensuring food security in the countries of Central Asia, modern realities and challenges in the post-pandemic world. So we hope it will be very interesting and rich for discussions and very good reports. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks a lot for your opening remarks. So let's start our discussion. As we have very limited time and a great range of experts, we would like to hear all of you and listen to your thoughts. And also we have a very good participants who are observing our event. So in the interest of time and interest of having a discussion, I would like to propose some and the house rules for our event. So let's stick to the, let's say 6-7 minutes for each speaker. We have 6 speakers right now, so it will take some time. And just briefly share your thoughts on the agenda, which we have shared with you in advance. And then we can move to our discussion and question and answer session. So now I would like to give the floor to the chair of our panel, Dr. Mirzumit Akhamdamov. So he will continue our discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, dear Krom. Good afternoon, dear participants of our webinar. I welcome everyone and would like to thank you for everyone for taking time to participate in our event. Let me briefly highlight some of the house rules that the Krom said before. During the event period, I kindly ask all participants who make presentation to observe the time limit for speaking, and afterward we can discuss all the issues for discussion to the speakers after the end of the entire discussion panel. If the participants have questions that need to be asked, or you can write in the chat or raise your hand on the online on the air panel. And I hope for your understanding, and I wish you a successful conduct to the scientific webinar. And then let's get started. The floor is given to the first participant, Professor Pierre Bogats, former coordinator for cooperation with Central Asian countries, European External Action Services, Belgium. Climate change and COVID pandemic opening new opportunities for growth and resilience. You are welcome.
Thank you, dear Dr. Kamdamov, dear distinguished guests and participants. First, I would like to express all my appreciation and thanks for your invitation to participate in this seminar addressing the crucial food security issue in the countries of Central Asia. Ensuring food security at the core of the socio-economic well-being and sustainable development of the region. Although distant from Brussels, but not so distant from the heart, I will share with you some remarks on the excellent questions that have been put to us on the new realities and challenges that we are all facing for a prosperous, sustainable post-pandemic world. The rapid change is upon us. We are all in one single planet, and the new realities call for a paradigm shift in how we look forward. The double shocks of climate change and COVID pandemic disaster combined present an unprecedented challenge for our societies, and unfortunately, they are set to last for a long time. Climate change is worsening for Central Asia. As you know, twice rise of average global temperature is observed in the region, which is already vulnerable, especially for the rural and agriculture areas where its economic development is vital and where 40 to 65% of its population and labor force is currently there. The key impact, I wouldn't elaborate too much, but you know that climatic pattern change, shortened growing seasons, changing frequency rainfall patterns, aridity, widening gap between water availability and needs. The consequences are so huge that we have two key issues. Imperative is to adapt now because the situation will continue to worsen. And secondly, we don't have a generation time to adjust. So how to mobilize our resources to face immediately this great challenge? Certainly, we need to examine the whole agro-food cycle from production to consumers, and their innovation and adaptation of most advanced scientific knowledge is the guiding principle. And our tools to undertake such drastic changes need to be mobilized swiftly. Certainly, agronomic build-up, experimental science, revise the whole education and training system. We'll talk later on this. But also support to new supply value chains in food and agriculture, where the logistics and transport chains to access the clients, the customers, is key. Now, last year we had the pandemic, and the pandemic reveals weaknesses, but also accelerated socioeconomic changes. One point I would like to make is that this pandemic is most likely to be a recurrent chronic risk with similar events. So last year was a terrible blow, showing the fragility of our society, increasing income disparities depending on the ability to keep your job or to have access and master new information communication technologies, creating a new divide between digital literacy and those who are not, including for the schooling of children. Now, the impact also was strong on food security risk in Central Asia. Access to food depends on your income, and the sharp reduction of economic activities in tourism, Eureka, in urban area for SMEs have been penalizing, such as also the migrant workers' families with travel restriction. So there is a stress on access to food. Finally, we have also been hindered intra-regional trade and exports with falling demands, economic crisis. Also, supply from food from the countryside has been hindered by difficulties for collection, road hauling, and particularly road hauling have been halted on national borders, disrupting value chains and access to foreign markets. So the magnitude of the impact of just the last pandemic event has been added to the systemic risk which we have to face. Now, I would say despite the magnitude of the impact, there is room for optimism. And that's what I would like to deal now with. There are strengths and opportunities in a sustainable recovery for agro-food system in Central Asia. First, we have a positive context. The green recovery is a key word all over the world. The worsening of the climate warning has convinced that an accelerated path to lower emissions was absolutely necessary. As I say, we are all in one single planet. Central Asia countries have embarked more seriously, I guess, from elaborating not only adaptation plan and green economic targets, but acting on it and putting in place measures to make progress. In the EU, in December 2019, there's been a new European Green Deal, which has been adopted and now is in law, and aiming at very ambitious objectives to reduce greenhouse gases and become neutral by 2050. The consequence, it has triggered a tremendous transformation process going on in Europe now, just on mobility, green energy, agriculture. We have now a new program, farm to work, farm to fork. In other words, we change the way we look at agriculture. Now, back on the pandemic, there have been very bold steps in Central Asia among your countries to counter the worst impact on the pandemic. The pandemic has triggered also a fast socioeconomic transformation to higher tech, digital, green transport and logistics in Central Asia. And also it has brought effective and enhanced effective joint efforts and cooperation between the states. In the EU, last year has been a quantum jump in the cooperation between EU member states, which was never conceived before. So, and I suppose in Central Asia, it is a process which is now starting. Now, the transformation of agriculture and food sectors is a key priority for the green sustainable economy of all Central Asian countries. And they're all realizing this. They are put ensuring food security, income, livelihood, and also export earnings from agriculture on top of their agenda, of their national development agenda. This is great because it gives ground for sustained efforts which are required in this sector to face our challenge. So there is scope for optimism. And in fact, I would like to talk, and as briefly as possible, because there is so much to say, and I guess our experts from the region will expand on this. But for me, there is really scope for optimism with remarkable policies, measures, initiatives, which are pursued in each of the Central Asia countries to face the transformation, adaptive transformation of the whole agro-food economic sector. Just to mention there that what we need are multiplier engines to accelerate the speed of implementation of measures and the adaptation. I will return to that at the end. And there, regional cooperation is key. Now, to mention some illustrations which are emblematic for me of the dynamic engagement of the region to cope with the new reality which we are facing. And they underline the very dynamic process and promising process which is now set in motion. Now, I will start with the last news. Last week, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution on the region of Aral Sea declared zone of ecological innovation and technologies to promote greater research and scientific efforts to recover the region and improve the environment. Now, we have to pay tribute to the president of Uzbekistan, President Mirziyoyev, who launched the initiative 4 years ago to call attention to the 5.5 million hectares of sandy salt deserts which were threatening the whole region. Now, this is a ray of hope on the region, world attention on it. And what is an even more heartening is what Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan are doing on it. The overall of agriculture practices in this region are the most difficult. It's the more dire conditions, but already programs like the ensuring climate resilience of farm and Deccan farms in arid zones, aiming at 1 million hectares in Karakapalstan, with several components, which I will just briefly mention. The landscape rehabilitation with tree planting management. I mention this because in Europe, permaculture, using trees to enhance the productivity of agriculture is already now being promoted. Organic farming with associated conservation methods, mulching, drip irrigation, accurate planting, hand tools for tilling and seeding. This is what we do in Europe. And that's what we are doing also in backward into, in brackets, backward Karakapalstan. No, this is providing resilient, gainful employment in more difficult conditions with tested agronomic and water savings method. This is the path for diversification and quality products of high value added, which can be then exported. Now, it's just an example, but I would also mention some other innovative approach, like the more than 500 or 600 greenhouses, which have been built in the last 2 years, gaining 1.5 to 2 months growing seasons, and linking with university research, the National Uzbek State Agriculture Agrarian University, with also linking with international source of scientific knowledge, the International Federation of Organic Agriculture. This is key for diversification. But these pilot projects need to be spread all over the region where it is applicable and most useful. Also, a key element, which I'd like to address briefly, is the overall of the whole education system dealing with agriculture, food and nutrition system. Now, going down to the farmers, to extension services. No, this is a huge, humongous task because it has to incorporate new approach, new method, new knowledge. So I understand that you have hard work, but the basis is there. And I'm glad that the EU is supporting the skill development system for employability in agriculture and irrigation system in Uzbekistan, part of the agriculture modernization projects. It's a large upgrading action plan targeting 5 different regions. So there is a lot to learn, a lot to do, but also this is essential to start now to do this. And the relations with modern methods in technologies and their practical application in the field is also key. Now, back to the pandemic positive effect, if there is one. It's the accelerated use of modern information technologies like we are now today practicing with you. From thousands of kilometers, we can have a frank and direct exchange. This is a great plus, but it's also existing within the country between extension services and farmers with online services. I mentioned this Karakapalstan, it's already being done. So just to mention that Central Asia countries can be proud of what they are achieving. And just a recognition of this was 2 weeks ago, the Kazakhstan Digital Agriculture Platform got a world prize. Their supervision technology and digital land monitoring platform became one of the highlighted best projects in the world to adapt your agriculture to the difficult situation at the World Summit of the Information Society. So I won't go into detail of this, but it gives technology a quick, all digital way to control, monitor agricultural land use, maximize its usage, ensure quality risk management, notably with the management of pasture, and increase financing of agriculture business. Now, this is great, but it needs to be multiplied at the national level, at the local level. We have the tools to make big progress. And you are in the game. So this is great. That's what I would say. I just mentioned a last example, which struck me because it's a pasture cooperatives in Karapaka, Pakistan. This is the most difficult situation. And this project is headed by a woman, which is head of a pasture cooperatives, which is now doing hydroponic plantings to feed all the cattle of our 600 members of our cooperative. Now, can you imagine that? Saving 75 hectares of irrigated land for something else while keeping their very precious cattle health. No, this is great. It needs to be multiplied. This is, the dynamic triggered by our harsh reality is very positive, and we should all be behind it. No, another, well, I won't mention all what you do in irrigation, dripping, and so forth. This is great. Again, the key issue there is how to find multiply engines throughout the country, throughout the countryside to have this. And we need the human resource development. We need the contacts with the farmers. And we need also, and that's my last point, an effective to bring their products to consumer, national markets, and foreign markets, because Central Asia is the heart of biogenetic diversity in all fruits, vegetables, seeds, which are of great quality, unmatched flavor, and which can be marketed with great value to affluent, especially urban markets in China, Russia, and in the EU. I was just reading last week, there was a promotion export by Kazakhstan in Paris, showing to big firms like Casino, Carrefour, Rungis, the quality of their agriculture food products. No, this is something, it's just starting. It can be built up and have multiplier effect of extreme importance for your economies and for your livelihood. No, I know that this question of logistics is a bit new to the region. To establish a national network of connected hubs, warehouses, distribution centers with associated processing or packaging, which can reach both your national markets, but also foreign markets, is in the beginning. That's where maybe also we could help, but where big progress can be done. You have already made significant steps. It's more than symbolic, it's really an engagement. For example, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan have now plans to establish this national network of warehouses and distribution hubs. But they are also working together as this new Central Asia International Center for Trade and Economic Cooperation, which set up a platform, a intermodal center for products and distribution linked back up to Fergana Valley or up to Turkestan and other urban centers in Kazakhstan, and further all the way to China or all the way to Russia or to Europe. This is great, and it is the beginning. And as I say, these are small seeds which are already germinating, and I'm looking for the day where they will all blossoming and we'll reap all the benefits from this.
Dear Professor, I'm so apologize for interrupting you in the time limit, please.
The last word I will have is more geared towards you. This is the importance of regional cooperation. Despite the diversity at local level, there are high economies of scales in joining the building block capabilities and response to transform the agro-food sector. And the risk of food security of Central Asia country will be most effectively addressed by a solid regional or bilateral cooperation and mutual endeavors. Joint synchronized actions is required between Central Asia countries. And I mentioned not only all the building blocks, genetics and all this education of the transformation, adaptive transformation in the agri-food chains, but also in transport connectivity, logistic chains, and building up a sizable export volume for all your quality products, securing their quality and reaching enormous markets. You know, in China, the cities are the cities of Chongqing is the size of Uzbekistan. Chengdu is the size of combined Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. I stop here, but that's my message. Thank you very much. Sorry for being long.
Okay, thank you very much, dear Professor Bogats, for your comprehensive report, detailed report, and I kindly ask all participants who make presentation to observe the time limit speaking, please. Indeed, the climate change is one of the main current challenges, and for example, the unpredictability of weather conditions that threaten food production, sea level rise that increases the risk of natural disasters, and other consequences of climate change and are global in nature and on an unprecedented scale. And if we don't take decisive action today, then subsequent adaptation to climate change will require a lot of effort and costs. Thank you. The next speaker is Professor Shavkat Hasanov, Director of Samarkand branch of TCI Inquiry Center, Uzbekistan. The theme of report: primary agriculture, food processing, and agri-food export in Uzbekistan. Please, you are welcome, Professor Shavkat Hasanov.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, dear participants. I'm glad to share my ongoing research and about primary agriculture production in Uzbekistan. It's my presentation will be a little bit narrow instead of Professor Bogats, because I'm focusing on to Uzbekistan cases and with statistics and then some policy recommendations. Please, admin, can I get, okay, yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. I think you are seeing my screen. Does everybody seeing my screen? Is this prime? Could you please?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So let's talk about this agriculture in Uzbekistan. As I mentioned, that today's our topic is primary agriculture, food processing, agriculture, food export in Uzbekistan. I'm representing Samarkand branch of Tashkent State Agrarian University, which established last year, 2020, and September. I'm director of this institution, and several years after my graduation of university, I worked in Samarkand Agricultural Institute in Samarkand. So concerning of our topic today is agriculture of Uzbekistan. It's a lot of audience already informed that agriculture is giving great contribution to GDP of Uzbekistan. It's around 28% of GDP comes from agriculture, and around 30% of employment or labor force is working in this sector. And also it gives around 10% of external earnings from this to export earning of Uzbekistan. Agriculture, there are a lot of opportunities to grow too many products, commodities. It's this capacity of to grow 21 million tons of fruit and vegetables, but however, it's right now we only using very less capacity of this in this opportunity. And if we are losing, if we are looking to our statistics, there are still a lot of losses due to this climate change and hot weather or spoiling, and also water scarcity. This kind of issues is instead of these issues, we are still losing a lot of perishable products. And if it's a contribution of food industry in Uzbekistan, export is counting about 6.4% in 2020. Yeah, it's a little bit statistics and share of agriculture. If you look to the screen, and if you can see it's starting 2017, it come to again to 28%, 29% of the share of GDP comes from agriculture. So, but however, we can see it instead of focusing of last year is pandemic period is still growing annual growth of agriculture is going on, and there are some diversification, as Professor Bogats already mentioned. It's ongoing diversification. You can see it of this share of yellow is vegetables and dark blue is fruits, and also melon production instead of other products like wheat and cotton is growing tremendously since 1991 up to 2020. So it's concerning of livestock, heat of livestock. If we look to 20 years dynamic, and we can see it, poultry is growing is tremendously, but cats and sheep and goats, it's almost remains the same. Almost it's very few. It's we can see some growth of this feed of this kind of livestock. So types of production in agriculture is already three types of production. Three types of farming is existing. For example, first one is household or decon farmers. There are smallholders. Some of them is subsistence farmers, although they are most producers of agricultural products, especially fruit and vegetables, in the livestock production in Uzbekistan. Second one is farms, ordinary farmers. They are growing still cotton, wheat, and right now is some fruit and vegetable also. It's new types of production. Type is existing right now is agroclusters. Agroclusters is like chain starting from this growing up to final products. They're capturing all this process. Or cooperatives is existing. It's started to energizing this types of farming since 2018. So there are some institutional map of agriculture in Uzbekistan. It's agroclusters. There are some support from government level. Monitoring is mostly doing by Ministry of Agriculture and regional authorities, associations, and then also suppliers and processors. All together, they are impact to agroclusters. So export, today state is government of Uzbekistan paying more attention to agricultural export, commodities export to other countries. Year by year although we are seeing the last year was pandemic, you can see it is a positive growth of agricultural products. And for example, it's cotton. Instead of cotton, is right now is fruits, vegetables, such kind of green salads is growing. And most destination is Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkey, and China is becoming most Uzbek products destination. The same time is we are importing products from our neighboring countries, especially from Kazakhstan, Turkey, Korea, China, and Kyrgyzstan as well. Export by commodities, you can see it in this diagram. Is last 4 years is if we can look to the diagram, it's last 2 years, 19 and 20. Although it's pandemic started 2000, it was pandemic period 2020. Vegetables, fruits, and such kind of products export value is not to. It's growing positively. It's not to impact pandemic period. Also, if you look this other fresh products, fresh fruits, the same case is instead of cotton. There are other types of fruits is growing. Is like cherries, persimmons, and pomegranates, apricots as well. So the same case with Uzbekistan is last year is tomato and onions is volume of export is growing comparing with the previous years. So issues today also previous lecturer presenter also what kind of issues exist in agricultural sector. Of course, water scarcity, everybody this year is feeling this water scarcity. Why? Because of climate change, because of hot weather, and plus also we have a transboundary issues. Why? Because of 2/3 of our water sources comes from our neighboring countries like Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. Yes, salinization, degradation is another problem in soil use or in soil resource use in agriculture in Uzbekistan. Lack of this like agro-logistic terminals, refrigerators, which is becoming some two processing facilities is lack of processing facilities is another issues. Of course, there are some standardization and certification to our agricultural commodities, which are targeted to other countries. And also there are some issuing wholesale and trade system. And of course, is price volatility and during the season period. For example, right now is onions is becoming, price of onion is becoming too less. It's not even not covering this this peaking period or harvesting costs as well. So role of state and to develop agriculture sector of Uzbekistan already adopted development strategy 2020 up to 2030. Their main objective is today we can see it, diversification of agricultural products of production. Of course, there are if you looked at a statistic 4 years ago, main crops was wheat and wheat, which ensured full food security issues, and also cotton for earning external currencies. Instead of these crops is because right now is ongoing rapid diversification agricultural production, and agriculture is mostly turning to fresh fruit and vegetable production and rice and other kinds of these herbal products. Improving land and water relationships to save some water resources and to use land efficiently, and also support of cooperation relationship between producers and processors and other institutions in agriculture, in implementing of IT technologies like smart agriculture in Uzbekistan, and drip irrigation or a sprinkle irrigation system to save water resources in Uzbekistan. And also there are some today also mentioned from previous presenter is increasing capacity building in agriculture, is paying more attention to education system, agriculture education system, and science in agriculture. There are some other policies which are supporting food processing. There are several projects since 2018, 2020, to targeting to processing, for example, 162 projects targeted to build fruit and vegetable processing facilities in all the country, and also around 40 projects, meat and dairy processing facilities to build. And such kind of projects also was to packaging and the soft drink sector also. And another is target is implemented to build an agro-logistic complex in the whole the country. Modern logistic centers still is ongoing, and also there are some building some institutions to store and to to process of agricultural products, which targeted to keep and to export to other countries. Another is support of development agriculture sector is support of exports. There are some, for example, is already adopted export financing and insurance protection mechanism is adopted 2019, which are, for example, accepted exporters accepted from income and value-added taxes. Subsidies they are receiving to reimburse 50% transportation cost, and also import tariffs are eliminated, and introduction international standardization and certification system, and reimbursement of participation in business seminar, trade missions forum inside and outside of Uzbekistan. And also there are some coverage of costs, participation and fire events in outside of Uzbekistan, and financial assistance for exporters to reimburse of some basic costs and railroad and air transportation. So in summary, we can say is agriculture is ongoing to diversification state in supporting agri-food products organization, export promotion of products, agriculture products from state side, and growth of agriculture value chain is, and also capacity building. AKI system today is AKI system, agricultural knowledge and innovation system is appearing all over the country, starting from Tashkent region and Fergana Valley and Samarkand and up to all regions of, they will build this agro-knowledge services in all of the country. Taking of the time, and thank you very much. I think I'm on the time to reach everything. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Hassanov. And indeed, the agriculture sector, as you said, is a strategic industry, especially in the expert positions for our country and ensuring food security both in the country and in the region as whole. Thank you very much for your participating and for your detailed report. The next speaker is Dr. Aljem Yelibayeva from Associate Professor at Narhoz University, School of Law and Social Sciences, Academic Program, International Relations from the Republic of Kazakhstan. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to greet you everyone on behalf of Narhoz University School of Law and Social Sciences. And I would like to thank our colleagues from University of World Economy and Diplomacy for the invitation in order to share their opinion and discuss different things about our region. I wish everyone health and sustainable development to all our countries. So if you can give me the right to share just your screen. Okay, thank you. To avoid interruptions, I need to switch off my video if you don't mind. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we see.
Okay, good, excellent, thank you. So I will talk about the Kazakhstan's experience in ensuring food security during the pandemic. And as you know, the coronavirus pandemic is like a global challenge. And since I'm not an agrarian, I'm just an international relations expert, I will give you a general overview how Kazakhstan went through this process and still is going on. And it takes, there are many challenges and Kazakhstan is working on it. So coronavirus pandemic caused tremendous changes in all our countries. And it's exposed problems in all strategic areas of our country. The head of the United Nations World Food Programme, David Beasley, just recently mentioned the number of hungry in East and Central Asia may rise by 135%. 2 days ago, Nursultan Nazarbayev, as honorary chairman of the Supreme Eurasian Economic Council, he spoke about the approaching food storage in a very short run. So it's a little bit scary, and I think, okay, if we look at Kazakhstan, 45% of the population lives in rural areas. Income of almost 30% of the economically active population is generated by employment in the agricultural sector. And according to our statistics committee, 2 million people out of 8.5 are employed in agriculture. So this is the information that is given. Ensuring food security is one of the strategic tasks of Kazakhstan, a key factor in domestic political stability and necessary condition for ensuring sustainable development and economic growth. According to the Global Food Security Index, improvement of Kazakhstan's position was from the 57th place in 2018 to 32nd place in 2020 among 113 countries, among world's countries. But despite the achieved level of food security in the context of the pandemic, there are urgent issues of maintaining and further development of own food production, uninterrupted operation of the trade and logistics infrastructure, as well as the creation of reserve stocks and stabilization of food supply. If we look at the general data and the overall performance, then you can see that Kazakhstan has the very high level of urbanization. It's the highest among all Central Asian countries, 58.2%, but it's not that high in comparison to OECD states, where 77% level of urbanization is the average. Kazakhstan has 87 cities, 6.5 thousand villages in 17 regions, only 3 cities with population of 1 million. And the investment increase is in fixed assets only in 18 large cities by 1.5 times increased. The next point why we actually succeeded the pandemic problems is the food safety and the procurement with own products. Kazakhstan procures and has enough products internally, more than 80%. This helped us to succeed in this problem. Then the third one is anti-crisis measures. Very heavy anti-crisis measures were taken by Kazakhstan. Among them is 4.5 million Kazakhstanis received financial assistance from the government because they lost their income and jobs. 1 million people received food and household sets. And Kazakhstan accepted only a selective restriction and adapted quarantine mechanism. The next point is the availability of food products for socially vulnerable categories of citizens. Why it's important? Because Kazakhstan regulated the food prices for these socially significant products. As you know, Kazakhstan has 19 items of goods, and 9 out of 19 items were fixed. The prices were limited by the government. The next one is temporary ban on the export of rural products. This was just during the pandemic, especially during the 2020. So while maintaining the supply of food products in the domestic market at the required level, we maintain the balance in the country inside. And the next one is the logistics. As our colleagues mentioned already before, the logistics plays important role, and in conditions of limited transport movement, uninterrupted transportation of food from one region to another ensure the stability of supplies in the country. If we compare the statistics of 2019, then we can see that the volume of gross agricultural output was decreased by 0.1%. And this slight decrease was due to the decline in crop production because of the dry weather. But if we compare, for instance, the production of livestock products, then it's increased by 4%. But frankly speaking, the security for meat in Kazakhstan is higher than in many other Central Asian countries. It's more than 85%. And the share of imports for red meat does not exceed 5%, which we use for the processing industry only. The next point is that in 2019, the export of agricultural products increased immediately by 6.4%. And the total grain, despite of the dry weather, we got 17.4 million tons of grain in 2019. And already in the early 2020, we received more than 20 million tons. So if you looked at investment in fixed assets in agriculture in this year, it was more than 41%. Now let's look for the 2020 agro-industrial complex of Kazakhstan. There was a positive dynamics of growth remained during the whole period of time. Increase in the volume of gross agricultural products was by 5.6%. And the growth was ensured, of course, by the increase in crop production. In 5 regions of Kazakhstan, the rate of development was higher than the level of Republican, as you see from the screen. The volume of gross livestock production increased by 3%. Food production in general increased by 4%. And there is actually the increase in production for all major socially significant food products like butter, rice, sausage, pasta, milk, and so on. You can see it from this screen. And if we just shortly say that there was an increase in fixed assets also, in investments in fixed assets in agriculture for 12 months of 2020, by 15% and amounted to 573.2 billion tenge. And the investment in food production was increased by 13.5%. This growth was ensured thanks to the coordinated work with our farmers and the algorithm that our government has adopted for carrying out the sowing operations in a pandemic, which included the ensuring of unhindered movement of agricultural producers, the delivery of fuels and lubricants, spare parts, seeds, fertilizers, plant protection products. And as a result, the sowing campaign was carried out with a high quality and an optimal agro terms. If we looked at the general positive dynamics, then you can see that Kazakhstan is already facing success in it due to the stability of production in agricultural complex, the availability of different social programs to ensure food security. We have a very low share of population below the poverty line, the availability of market and financial services in agricultural sector, as well as the supply to the market. But there are other problems that the experts from the international strategy partners groups are mentioning. The problems are the need to invest in the processing of agricultural products, not in the raw material. And the next one is difficulties with the sale and export of agricultural products like cabbage and other types of green crops. The third one is the need to improve storage system. This is the big problem for Kazakhstan, and we're already working on that. Logistics, effective marketing of products to the end consumer, and the lack of thermal storage in a region with a sufficient number of exporters, which is the reason to the high losses of farmers. And the last one is the lack of qualified personnel and transfer of experience, like Professor Bogats mentioned. This is very actual and high urgent issue for all Central Asian countries. Just recently, for a year, Kazakhstan is working on the national program for the development of agro-industrial complex of Kazakhstan for 2021 and 25, because the previous one is just ending this year. And this draft is worked out with the international organization, Food and Agricultural Organization. It is based on President Tokayev's statement to peoples of Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan in reality, time for action, where they set specific objectives in order to improve the agricultural area. The first is the saturation of the domestic market with social significant food, a stable increase in the income of 1 million rural residents. The next one is increase in labor productivity by 2.5 times, increase in the export of processed agricultural products by 2 times, diversification of production from cereals to other products like oilseed, realization of organic agriculture development potential. And in 2021, we already put as an objective the creation of 24 wholesale distribution centers. This is highly important for the storage in order to avoid the food shortages and the rising prices, in order to provide farmers and wholesalers with trade infrastructure for the sale of products, temporary storage and revision. Why? Because the government calculation shows that if we accept these wholesale distribution centers, and Kazakhstan is already working on the construction of these centers with the private, with the attraction of private capital, we will reduce the losses in the production, processing, storage, and transportation of goods from current 40% to 10% by 2025. We will increase the farmers' income up to 72 billion tenge, which is quite high. And we can decrease in the prices for agricultural products due to the increased production of fruits and vegetables. We can modernize agricultural infrastructure, access to sales market, and increase yields. But there is a dynamic in the export, as you see from the turnover, that the export is exceeding in comparison to import. This is the weakest side of Kazakhstani agricultural complex. We usually export to the main products like residues and waste from the food industry, finished products from grains and cereals, tobacco and manufactured tobacco substitutes, alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks and vinegar, as well as sugar and sugar confectionery. Kazakhstan is also exporting generally to 25 countries. Top of them are Russia, Kyrgyzstan, China, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. During the pandemic, just last year, Kazakhstan became not only as an importer, but also as exporter and assisted in, gave the humanitarian aid to Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan in the wheat. 10,000 tons of wheat were exported to our neighbors. So as you see, the state of emergency showed that in Kazakhstan, the low level of infrastructure for storing agricultural products, the existing capacities of vegetable stores, which were enough just for a maximum of a third of a total volume of vegetable production. And this created a shortage of products in an off-season time. Of course, and it demanded the need for an increase in import of goods. That's what we need to eradicate and work more. Well, I think this is the main point that I wanted to say. Thank you very much. If I can answer your questions, then I can.
Thank you very much,
I hope
Dr.
it wasn't that fast so you can understand me. Sorry. I think. Yes, I'm ready to answer your questions after the presentations of my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Algim Yulibayeva, for your informative and very professional report with the detailed information in expert position and in ensuring food security in Kazakhstan. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Dr. Ikhtiar Babajanov, Research Associate, Department of Agricultural Markets, Marketing and World Agricultural Trade, Leibniz Institute of Agricultural Development and Transition Economies, IAMO, Germany. The theme of report, agricultural insurance markets, from index design to farmers adaptation. Please, Dr. Ikhtiar Babajanov, you're welcome. All question we just write in the
thank you very much. I hope you
we will discuss after discussion panel. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we hear.
Okay, I will try to share my screen now. Can you please allow me to share my screen? I cannot share my screen yet.
Yes, you can demonstrate your screen.
Yeah, but I don't have.
You have the rights.
I don't have right to share the screen yet. Ah, yes. Now seems to be it's working. Yes. So thank you very much for invitation. I have to admit that I'm in a home office condition. Today it's a public holiday in Germany, and therefore I'm the title of my presentation is Agriculture Index Designed to Farmers Adoption. First, I want to discuss the relevance of this topic to food security. We have to just one small information that this insurance development of the insurance market can contribute to productivity growth and thus to in this way to development of improvement of food security in the country. This is a more specific topic. It's a specific setting. What I'm going to discuss. The main aim of this topic is to main aim of this presentation is to demonstrate how scientific projects could be implemented in real life conditions and which kind of difficulties may arise to have scientific transfer oriented projects. Just to show at the content, I just showed information.
Dr. Ikhtiar,
I will speak
I'm
about.
so sorry for interrupting
Yes?
you. Maybe you will switch on off your video due to your internet is slowed down.
Okay, just I will try now. Just a second. I'm
No,
trying now.
no. Your video, your camera. Yeah, it's okay. Thank
Yes,
you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we're here.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me now. Good, I will make now full screen. Okay, the important contribution, of the insurance, agricultural insurance, is coming from increasing volatility of climate in all of these countries. Here I give some example just to demonstrate the importance. For example, we can see here increasing temperature in all countries, especially in countries where water scarcity is a problem. It might cause a lot of problems and a lot of challenges. Here I show some information on the trends of precipitation. The precipitation, it might also seem to be increasing, but one important issue to pay attention is here is increasing volatility. We have to pay attention that it might be slightly, the precipitation may increase slightly, but the volatility is increasing very, very high, and therefore it might cause very, very large challenges, especially in Central Asia. Here I put Germany and Russia as just a reference point. The presentation I'm going to speak here mainly covers the countries Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Mongolia. We have an implementation project in these countries. Why to pay into account or pay attention to agricultural insurance is because of the importance of agricultural production and rural employment in these countries. We have, like, in most of the countries, share of agriculture in GDP is very high, as you can see from the graph below, and as well as employment. The share of employment is also high, as well as share of rural population is also very high in these countries, that it makes it very important to tackling this issue. As I indicated in the beginning of the presentation, agriculture in all of these countries is one of the fields which attracts very limited investment. Agriculture is suffering from lack of investment in these countries. And the main reason why we have a lack of investment is that agriculture is as I demonstrated in the slides earlier, is a volatility of production. Agricultural production is very risky, and therefore it refrains many, it holds many investors to invest into agricultural sector. And from one side, if you have index or agriculture insurance market developed, then it may contribute, it may reduce the volatility, income volatility of agricultural producers, and it may attract investors to agricultural production. And we have one problem. One of the main problems why we don't have this agriculture insurance developed in these countries. It's mainly lack of trust to each other. Farmers don't trust to agricultural insurance companies, and agricultural insurance companies do not trust to farmers, and therefore there is a kind of two-way mistrust that holds. And index insurance is like, what's the main difference between index insurance is that instead of inspecting the farmers' fields, we have certain index that the farmers get payments for. It could be a rainfall, it could be It could be a temperature that farmers get their payments based on this index instead of visits. It may develop the market very. It may contribute to development of the insurance market in this region. This agriculture insurance or index insurance is not new, but it's like coming to the market or coming to the implementation during the last 10-15 years. And here I show in this map the number of farmers insured with index insurance all over the world. Here we also can see that in Central Asian countries, only Kazakhstan and Mongolia started implementation with very limited number of farmers. But still, although it's like discussed to be a very important development, but it's still not developing as fast as one could expect, and then it's still slow. And if you look at the literature, it's very difficult to identify the problems, and therefore one of the main goals of this project was to try to understand why such kind of index programs, index markets do not develop very fast against theoretical advantages. And therefore it was like we tried to explore which kind of indexes fit to the conditions of Central Asia and Mongolia, and we want to investigate or we are investigating the insurance demand in those countries, and then as well as to follow the transfer project, because we are like designing a product, we are investigating the demand, and with our partners in those countries, with our insurance partners, we try to bring this product to real life conditions. It's therefore to follow it from the design of the index as long as it's delivered to farmers. And therefore we had this project called Climales, which aimed to increase the resilience of agricultural production via agricultural insurance. And then in this project, we as I identified, like develop a product, we try to sell it to real farmers, as well as we investigate the impact. We see how much it can contribute to food security. But one of the main challenges we were facing, usually, as I indicated, index insurance could be based on the temperature or climate data, but it's very difficult to get temperature and climate data in those countries, because of two reasons. In those countries, usually weather data is managed by hydromets, so-called hydromets. And first of all, the weather stations, as you can see in this map, weather stations are located very far from each other. Is the one reason. And the second reason is that hydromets usually treat the data as a national security. They don't provide it. They don't provide it openly. You can't get an access to this data easily. And to overcome this issue, we were using so-called satellite-based data. We take temperature data. We take. I try to know. I don't go too much of the details here to save some time. But like just show some slides, but try to go fast. We try to get like from different providers, from different satellite providers. We try temperature data is here. It's a precipitation data, and then we compare it with few station data we get, just to make sure that if we can get it. And usually there are some differences between temperature data or between satellite data and weather data. We have to be aware of it. But like here, you can see an quantile regression analysis to check with data, and like you can use it, the satellite data, but we have to be a little careful in use, especially if it's a precipitation data. But for temperature data, temperature data is very accurate with compared to weather data. When we are using therefore the precipitation data, we recommend to use cumulative data. Here, just demonstration beyond precipitation and temperature data, we also use so-called vegetation indices. Here, it's just a demonstration of drought year in 2011, as well as a good year in 2006. It's a Zabdar district of Zizak province, just to show. As you can hear in the left-hand side, it's like kind of situation for drought. And then in the right-hand side, it's a situation for very good year that the satellites can detect it well. Here it's an example for Bogats district of Khorasan province. Here you can see, again, the left-hand side is a drought year in 2011. Is a right-hand side is a good year. And yeah, it's don't be like surprised about the yellow areas below the map. It's a desert area in Khorasan region. Therefore, it was always yellow. And then after having identified the good indices, suitable indices, we try to investigate the demand for insurance. For example, it's here. We have conducted also in Kyrgyzstan. We have conducted such demand analysis experiments in Uzbekistan, and we show as long as we develop the product, we price it with our partners, and then we investigate the demand of farmers with our colleagues to see which kind of products they want to buy and who buys it. And afterwards, we analyze it scientifically. We have several people, several PhD students. Here is the work from Laura Morris. She was investigating the demand based on the experimental data, just to investigate which factors we will look. Just here, just to show, to give only one issue, that one most important issue that the farmers buy insurance when the neighboring farm buys an insurance. It's a one very important aspect to consider in terms of dissemination. Okay, after having the product ready, after having investigated the demand, and then we start the real sales at the countries. We have sold in 2019 in Zamin district of Uzbekistan few contracts to see how we can come to the reality and how we can sell it. And unfortunately, the last year, because of the COVID situation, we were not able to sell it in Uzbekistan. We were like kind of, we could not travel to the districts. Therefore, it was like we have stopped it. But we will start again this year or the next year in Uzbekistan. The last year we also did the piloting in conditions of Mongolia. In Mongolia, about 387 farmers we have sold in cooperation with Mongolian Re. And here we have based our product with vegetation-based index insurance, depending on the district or the region, up to 70% of the area where insurance with our index. Okay, if I may shortly summarize that.
Dr. Ikhtiar Babajanov, I'm sorry, I apologize for interrupting. Please take a point, a limit of time.
It's my last slide now.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, that's it's as I said, it's a lack of climate data we have, and then the satellite data may provide a very good solution. And we have lack of confidence and a large number of negative experience with insurance, especially in Uzbekistan. And thus it's very difficult to implement such products, but we have like kind of combination of insurance and credit may provide such kind of market. And we are speaking about improving the food security. It's just my short notice. We are speaking about state policies and different policies. Everyone wants to implement something, but it's always challenging to implement in real life conditions. And therefore, the one example from this project, one lesson learned from this project is that before we start to change the politic ups and downs, before we try to implement certain policies, we have to always test it in a small area. Thus we can see which kind of problems we have, such we can see how we can implement in real time conditions. And therefore we have to be always careful before providing recommendations to policy. And it's like kind of we have to test small level, followed by scientists. This process should be scientifically implemented, but their state organizations, state ministries also should support this implementation. Under these conditions, we can identify a good policy measures which can improve the food security and productivity in these regions. Thank you for your attention. That was my last statement.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ikhtiar Babajanov, and really you have touched upon a very sensitive sector in ensuring food security, namely as the food insurance market. And today the relevance of this area has increased attention in the countries of Central Asia. And I think it's by applying the international experience in improving the insurance market that it will serve as one of the main segments in ensuring food security. Thank you very much for the detailed report. And next speaker is Dr. Bakhtiar Gamberdiyev, Alatu International University from Kyrgyzstan. The name of the report, the agriculture sector in Kyrgyzstan, the reasons for inefficiency and the development prospects.
Yes,
you're welcome,
dear
Dr.
colleagues.
Bakhtiar Gamberdiyev.
Thank you. And hello, everybody, and thank you very much for inviting for this wonderful conference. And yeah, well, the presentations were really valuable and interesting, and I am going to add up. So, by the way, I'm happy to observe that the presentations I heard before were like about the achievements, quite significant achievements, for example, in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, very good. But when it comes to Kyrgyzstan, and I'm sorry there was no representative from Tajikistan, I am sure it would be quite comparable. We are quite backward countries, seems to be. And, you know, from like for many years, I've been studying the problems of neoliberal economic development, so to tell, or strategies. And basing on that, I would tell that all the backwardness in the countries like Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan comes out of that neoliberal policies. And that's why the situation of COVID actually touched us or affected us the most significantly. By the way, you see, for example, here, post-COVID change in Kyrgyzstan. In 2021, the poverty rate in Kyrgyzstan may increase by another 4% and reach 35%. So in 2019, it was actually 20.1%. In 2020, it was already 31%. And now it could reach up to 35%. You see, the state affairs is explained by two reasons: the loss of sources of income, inflation, especially food, which in 2020 reached the mark of 12%. This was stated by the head of the World Bank office in Kyrgyzstan, Navid Hassan Nadvi. And by the way, you see, the GDP in Kyrgyzstan failed 8.6% within last year, while like advanced countries failed 4.4%. And overall, you see, the food products increase in price 17.6%. We felt it significantly. And when it comes to, let's say, gasoline, for example, nowadays, just in 3 months, we have experienced 20% increase of gasoline. By the way, I would just even compare the situation in Tajikistan, which I paid attention only because of that conflict we had short time ago. You know, I found out that their poverty was 47% like the poverty on which $1.38 I mean, people live on less than $1.38. In case of Kyrgyzstan, it was 31%, and it's going to increase. And for example, and it was before COVID, now probably increase. And people were really attached to their Facebook and other sources. We were telling, hey, we have a disaster. The prices are growing too much, and the gasoline price was almost double of ours, and kept growing. And I believe the situation in Tajikistan, for example, like that border conflict, it was a very good way for leaders of Tajikistan to put aside, let's say, or to put aside attention of people from the economic problems to other problems. Thank goodness this was resolved, but you see, it affected significantly both countries. Actually, you see, overall, if you tell about Kyrgyzstan, 76% of population felt actually the COVID-19 effects. I mean, their earnings declined because of that overall. And in this situation, trying to understand what happened, usually I go back to our shock therapy approach. You see, for example, if you tell about shock therapy approach, actually, or our, let's say, neoliberal approach, we can see most of countries, but for Uzbekistan, followed this approach. And Uzbekistan, for example, this is the comparison to 1989, but in comparison to 1991, Uzbekistan, for example, had only 11% decrease of GDP. If we tell about Kyrgyzstan, it fell to 50.6% of GDP in comparison to 1991. Very significant. Half of GDP disappeared. Even worse situation, for example, okay, not Central Asia, but for example, worse situations were in Ukraine in longer term, or Moldova. In Ukraine, 30% left. In Moldova, 30% left. In Georgia, 25% of GDP left within initial years of reforms. And sure, it affected both agriculture, industries, and so on. And then, so today, and let me tell even several mechanisms how it happened. For example, in case of Kyrgyzstan, and as many other countries, we followed the mechanism like liberalization, stabilization, and privatization policies. Okay, liberalization of prices, liberalization of trade, and it caused influx of products from abroad, and at the same time, prices grew up significantly. And then, because of that, our domestic producers were not able to compete with foreign. By the way, there were adverse supply shocks, so to tell. And adverse supply shocks mean like we liberalized the prices, and the prices, particularly of basic goods like oil or like mineral resources or just basic agricultural products like cotton and so on, increased. Why? Because on the world market we were higher. But domestically, the other products, just the price didn't increase, the salaries didn't increase, people were not able to buy that product, and then the producers were not able to produce this. And then, okay, we wanted to stabilize the prices. Kyrgyzstan was #1 in Central Asia to establish its own currency, 10th of May, 1993. Not only Central Asia, post-Soviet countries, even Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia, they were later than Kyrgyzstan to establish its own currency. And then we established our own currency, but money supply in circulation was 2-3% of GDP. What does it mean? So there is the formula MV = PQ, in which money supply multiplied velocity is equal overall GDP, the prices and quantity. Prices wouldn't go down so much. You know, in stable economies, usually 25-30% of GDP is a money supply. In case of Russia in crisis, it was 100%. In case of Hungary in crisis, it was 50%. Okay, we decreased very much. And then I remember I was a child at that moment. We wanted to buy something, no products. I had my own business. I was a child. Okay, I opened it with my daddy. And then quite much, we had barter. We've been taking eggs, flour, or honey or whatever, so that to sell our products. And the salaries at that time were paid by what? By even furniture or food products and so on. Those who were working on food products, they were happy. And so, okay, step by step, when money supply slightly increased, we've been getting some better. But you see, privatization. When we made privatization, for example, in Kazakhstan, privatization was on larger scale, and quite big enterprises were established. We followed the idea, let's do it fairly. And we distributed it, let's say, by very, very small enterprises. For example, depending on the size of the village, the area and the population ratio. And for example, in the south of Kyrgyzstan, the area per person was like 1 hectare in average. In southern Kyrgyzstan, it was like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 hectares per person. What does it mean? Average size of farming households nowadays in Kyrgyzstan, or like average size of farms, around 5 hectares per person. In the southern, even less. What does it mean? No economies of scale. You want to take money, no money to borrow, because nobody will trust you. You are too small. And privatization of tractors and so on happened in some villages. Okay, they were privatized and they kept working. But again, you want to buy some tools, no way to buy those tools or like equipment. Why? Because you have to go to bazaar, mostly Chinese products, which are getting broken very fast. And when you see the areas were split, people do not have money. As soon as you get that money, you pay for that, and tractor comes, plows your land, and it goes back. And when your neighbor finds money, he actually pays you, and the tractor goes and plows. Instead of previous situation when the collective farms, one collective farm would have like 20 tractors, and within like 10 days they would plow all 10,000 hectares, for example. Nothing like that nowadays. And you see, in privatization, I remember the cases when the tractors were split on smaller pieces, and people were plowing by horses. And sure, after that, which kind of agricultural efficiency we can tell? Yeah, for example, Dr. Babajanov mentioned or has shown in graph about the size of number of people in agricultural sector and so on. 66% of population live in a rural place in Kyrgyzstan. It gives 26% of labor force, and it gives 43% of GDP, 42% of GDP. But you see, it's totally inefficient. It's totally inefficient nowadays. And that's why, for example, Kyrgyzstan today is able to provide its own only potato, its own vegetables, and milk products. That's it, nothing more. Okay, we have our own meat, but we are importing meat. Why? Because for many years, we've been exporting like our livestock to Kazakhstan, I'm not blaming Kazakhstan or Tajikistan or Uzbekistan for that. You see, we've been selling it. We don't have strategy about that. Instead of making meat and selling it abroad, this way. And that's why you see our enterprise is inefficient. Okay, before that, we had like complex economies in agriculture. Nowadays, nothing like that. A person depends on very much on volatility of prices. And for example, 1 year, people think, oh, last year the prices of potato were good, and they increase the production of potato, the prices collapse. And after that, people just in loss. And when they are not cropping it, the prices grow up. And again, they are in loss because they crop something for which, for example, garlic, on which prices fall down as well. And no prediction and so on. Yeah, we should develop more trade. In these terms, we should give opportunity for unifying enterprise or for creating agricultural associations. Nothing of a kind here. In past, we've been producing our cotton, and in past we had our processing textile industry. But the only thing, for example, if in Uzbekistan there was a strategy to develop economy and all enterprises existing before we were connected to our Soviet states. In Uzbekistan, after collapse of Soviet Union, all productions were connected to each other. For example, our cotton was sold usually to Ivanova, but we used textile from, let's say, from Uzbekistan or whatever here to produce our suits and so on. Instead of connecting our domestic production as far as the connections with our countries stopped. Kyrgyzstan said, oh, Akayev in that time, the president, hey, we should privatize and people will do itself. And you see, in comparison to Uzbekistan, where state capitalism was created, nothing of a kind was done here in Kyrgyzstan. And then actually today, what we have, decreased productivity within the sector, extremely small scale of enterprise in the sector, lack of technical equipment, and distracted irrigation and communication infrastructure, roads, social infrastructure, schools. Okay, we have schools very low quality. Because of that, people like try to skip villages and go to cities, but still no job there and so on. And even if they get education at like a rural place, then they are to have like quite low prospects as well. Hospitals, most of hospitals were just destroyed. And kindergartens, no kindergartens at all, no clubs at all there. And you see lack of seeds, fields, fertilizers as well, because like we are not developing this in good scale. Yeah, there are some attempts, there are smaller companies about that, not significant. And we are buying, for example, seeds from Kazakhstan. We are buying fuels from abroad, and every time that volatility of prices of fuels, for example, as soon as fall or spring starts, particularly agricultural season, what happens? Sure, the prices of fuels increase drastically, and it affects the prices of agricultural products. Then after that, when we have crops, immediately the prices, I mean in fall, the prices of crops fall down. And what? Because usually people do not have warehouses to store, because in collective farms, one big warehouse would be enough for, or 1, 2, 3, whatever they had, it was enough for whole farm. But now 1, 2 person own this, but the others do not have a place to save it. And if they don't have a place to save it, what happens? They are selling immediately, and they borrowed money actually so that to crop their seeds and so on. And then they just pay back their debts and nothing else. They are just they are starving or just surviving somehow. That's it. And you see financial problems, expensive loans, and as far as I mentioned, like very small enterprises, usually you can't get that loans, because usually banks do not think that you will be able to pay back. No subsidies, and you see significant price fluctuations. And actually, you see, no state support of a sector I mentioned, but nowadays, studying literature about new dynamics, I find that today we are switching to post-liberal world. What means post-liberal? You see, more and more countries find out that liberalism is not okay. So they switch from democracy, they switch from market economy. But here is already my idea. What is the way to switch off? It seems like we are switching off. Actually, for example, in my monograph, I wrote that state capture and individual interest realization were among key things in independent Kyrgyzstan, and even pushing through liberalization policies and actually democratization. They were trying to realize their individual interests, and they didn't care about the state. And nowadays, they are switching from market economy to let's say, post-liberal world, and they are selective in choosing their policies. For example, they tell, hey, we don't need parliamentary system in Kyrgyzstan. This is inefficient. And we create, as in Kyrgyzstan, we tell constitution. So constitution which Khan would rule. It means one very powerful man, which is situation nowadays. And then you see this constitution brings the situation when, okay, a person controls, but this is total inefficiency, because you see, he takes people whom he trusts, but the qualifications of those people is nothing. And then again, inefficiency and no improvements in agriculture. I'm trying to push the idea that, hey, we should use our own money to finance this and to finance, for example, our economy, industries, agriculture, and so on, through like nowadays the model so-called integral economy, which in past in Japan was used, for example, or South Korea and or in China. But I mean, using own money, but controlling so that money wouldn't disappear.
Dr. Bakhtiar, I'm so sorry for interrupting you.
I'll try to conclude.
Time limit, please.
Thank you for mentioning. And that's why you see we are inefficient and individual interest realization is still prospering. Actually, then even the exchange rate was not okay for our agricultural sector. And the situation is really sad, really bad. And the attempts to change something, at least their statements about that, honestly, do not bring anything because they are still aiming for their personal interests and no significant change. Yeah, programs like World Food Program and our United Nations and other programs are helping, but this is like drop in a bucket. This is nothing. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I took too much time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bakhtiar Gimberdi, for your sensitive, detailed, and emotional report. Thank you. The next speaker, last speaker, is Mr. Aybek Saginaev, Director of Project Development Department, joint stock company Castrate, and teaching professor is Kazgu University. Please, you're welcome, Dr. Aybek Saginaev.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Could you please give me
share
the right to share the screen? Yeah.
Yes, screen.
Generally, I think speakers already discussed many insightful information, and I don't want to be repetitive, and I just want to clarify some of the points and from my institution. And big thanks to Aygerim Yelibaeva, who already highlighted all the main points from the Kazakhstani point. Obviously, for Central Asian countries, we have quite common problems and issues that have been discussed today. All right, so who I am, so who we are, I represent Castrate, joint stock companies, government institutions under the Ministry of Trade and Integration in the Republic of Kazakhstan. Can you hear me, colleagues?
Yes, we hear you.
Sorry, I'm having some technical issues. All right. So we are the main institutions who are in charge of all these trade policy movements and all the policy forming factors, including the drafting the national projects, the national laws, and so on. And it is also should be mentioned that in Kazakhstan, there is a huge role of Ministry of Agriculture in this sector as well. I'm sorry, can you see my screen, my presentation?
Due to your technical problems, maybe we can see your presentation.
Oh, sorry, just a minute.
Maybe you re-download it.
Yeah, I will try. I'm very sorry. Okay, probably I'll continue and then I'll be shifting my slides. What I want to say is some of the actions from the ministry, from our institution in order to take that food security in our country. Obviously, that pandemic revealed that this is the priority number one from the point of socio-economic view. And in terms of this, ministry held several actions. The one of them is to make a list of most sociable, recognized, and necessary products. And we have a practice of setting a certain price for these products, and it is realized jointly with Akimat. So this is a regional, it's like Hakimiyat in Uzbekistan. So this is a regional authorities which are also highly integrated, and they are quite accountable for the price. And our Prime Minister, on a very regular basis, check on these prices so they can be affordable for the nation. I'm very much sorry. This is probably the problem with my computer, but I cannot do anything. Colleagues?
Yes, Dr. Aybek. Maybe you will close your demonstration of the screen and reopen it.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying to close, but it's not reacting. So, what I also I'll be just speaking. So, another point I want to highlight is one of the solutions from my point of view will be the development of trade. So our internal trade in Central Asia, it's not a secret. It is also commonly recognized by international institutions that the trend today is a regionalization of the business, of the overall relations. So the countries are becoming open, we can say, given the fact that presidents of the countries are regularly meeting. So in terms of this, the export matter is quite important. And personally, me, I'm in charge of development of the non-commodity export out of from Kazakhstan, and the food production generally comes as the most developed industry for our country, and we put much effort in terms of making export possible, including our neighboring countries. We have a set of different instruments to support this, starting from the analytics, deep analysis of the markets, and continuing with the special program for the exporters, including the e-commerce tools. Also, we make a reimbursement of costs for the exporters. So while we are talking about export in this context, we have to also understand that this kind of reimbursement and support from the government side will help them to, increase their productivity, improve their overall performance in terms of making that production, and overall increase the scale of production. Another important point and quite unique program organized by our institution was the Export Acceleration Program. So importantly, this program will run also to the markets of Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan this year. So we do hope that this program will assist our countries to, trade even bigger and make more trade facilitation between the countries, because the program is international and there are international experts in there. So what is the program is about? So we are trying to select quite developed producers, including food producers, and the number will be 130 this year. According to our last experience from the last year, we had 35 companies going to the Chinese market, and this year we are increasing the scale of this program. And last couple of slides, I don't want to talk too much. We're about basically the practical actions what our authorities and what our institutions taking in order to make that food security possible. I've already told about regional authorities, but also there is a huge program in a state level called the Developing the Wholesale Distribution Centers. So these are fulfillment centers located all over the Kazakhstan, who are aimed to provide who are aimed to provide all the cities with the food, basically, because we know that in terms of Kazakhstan situation, it's already been told that we are quite in scarcity of some products, especially when we talk about vegetables, fruits, and some meat products. And obviously, it's quite an important factor to make that all available. I'm very much sorry for this technical issue, colleagues, but I'm ready to make that presentation available for you a bit later, because my computer is not reacting at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Dr. Aybek Saginaev. And dear participants, we are moving on to the question and answer session. Please be more active and question, please. Maybe we have a question on chat.
Yeah. Thank you very much for all speakers for such a comprehensive presentations. And my first question is to Professor Pierre Borgolds. You have mentioned in your presentation the problems of food security in the region of Central Asia. And what would be the most applicable approach from the side of Uzbekistan, in your opinion, to solve such kind of problems? Thank you.
Я вообще ничего не могу нажать. Нажать ничего не могу, не реагирует комната.
Dear Professor Borgolds, we don't hear you. Do you hear a question?
But I cannot. No, I can speak, isn't it? Do you hear me?
Now I hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, this is an excellent question. You can see from the presentations that, in fact, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, facing the new realities, are already engaged wholly from the state to the regions to even the provinces in modernizing and putting new technologies as much as possible at the service from the farmers to the extension services, and thinking also of how to reach the consumers in the cities, providing warehouses, cold chain, and so forth. Now, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan have similar, I would say, ecological conditions, also in different parts. You have the south of Kyrgyzstan, the north of Kyrgyzstan, but you have also Tajikistan in the Fergana Valley, and so on. So my view is that to enable those countries which still seems to lose a main direction, it's important for them to understand that the future is going to be grim if they continue as they are, but grim in a sense that they will lack everything, starting from food. And so exchanges and sharing some of your examples of food drastic as being the changes, for example, of a traditional way to do agriculture and livestock in Kazakhstan has turned from black to white, completely changed to be able to confront the new situation. Now, it will be important for also, I'm just taking the example of Kazakhstan, monitoring the load on pastures to avoid excessive load that will kill the pasture for years. Now, these are tools which can be shared with your neighboring countries, saying, listen, things need to be going in a direction that will enable to confront the difficult situation. I'm just talking, maybe this is inappropriate, but a recent event in Baruch between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, this issue of water. The people in Kyrgyzstan were lacking basic water for just their food production, household production. So that was the water was diverted. To establish a joint panel to examine what are the problems facing the region across borders, and saying we need to cope with this together. There is no one winning side. We need to be able together to face this issue. So I think exchanges to be able to measure the depth of the problem, the magnitude of the issues which confront this less endowed country is a first point. And maybe, as we have in Europe, with exchange of students, with stage, or exchange of professors, or scientific exchange, need to be brought to the fore, because it's not only declaration or goodwill that will change things. You need to concretely make possible change of methods, change of vision, and this is a benefit which Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan can bring to these countries.
Thank you very much.
Well, some question in chat. Dear Professor Pierre Bogats, how we can accelerate adoption process in agriculture, for example, using and cultivation agricultural products in green gas houses, in small farms or rural households?
I came to Uzbekistan in 2015, and it was a conference to share civil society participation in the state development program. And that was, I brought the example of agriculture in France. And basically, agriculture, the farmers, as you have shown, they are organized in vacant farms or commercial farms or agro-processing. But the sharing of experiences from other farmers is the best trigger of change. And so the couple of pilot successful projects for greenhouse, for example, these can be shared. Greenhouse, they are useful not only in arid region, but also in more mountainous regions, where you can advance your cropping pattern, have half, how do you say, you put the greenhouse part in the soil, so they are more stable in temperature and so forth. I mean, this is a domain where the results are so obvious that sharing or having representative of other regions sharing this is the best accelerating factor. Of course, the extension services need to follow, but now I suppose, at least in Uzbekistan, you have a network linking all the extension services. They are using online communications, and even virtual visits can be organized to demonstrate by concrete illustrations what is possible to do. That's, I think, we have at hand engine for accelerating the understanding and understanding also of the results obtained, which can be put in full stream.
Thank you, dear Professor Bogats. We have one more question on chat. And we have one question from Nigina Saidova. Good afternoon, I'm Nigina Saidova, the second course student of University of World Economy and Diplomacy. Nigina has a question, and in rural areas, evidence presented in the speeches above show that agriculture-based livelihoods, we are also faced with the indirect effects of COVID-19. Could you say in what particular area is experiencing challenges? These questions for all speakers. Please, who wants to answer? The participants?
No, if I just make an observation on the positive side, from the example in Kazakhstan, you will see that extension service have online access to the farmers or to their cooperatives. And so that's a positive effect of the COVID, the necessity to have a digital literacy throughout the population. This is an indirect consequence which needs to be fully incorporated in the education system. The negative effect is, of course, if you get sick in the rural areas, how you get health services and so forth. No, vaccination, and that's all the precautionary measures are, of course, indispensable for everybody. And then the loss of income, because you cannot transfer your product to market in the cities. We talk about the efforts to improve the logistics chains and get economies of scale to market valuable product to final customers. Now, this is, of course, a process going on, but on which both the local, regional authorities are involved and should continue to improve the situation, the market outlets.
Thank you very much, dear Professor Pierre Borgals, for your deep and detailed answer. The next question from Hulkar Karimova. Dear Dr. Babajanov, what are the main steps to develop or establish properly agriculture insurance market in Uzbekistan? And what would be the most dealing issue in this process? Dr. Babajanov? Do you hear us? Maybe due to technical problems, Dr. Babajanov He is not with us. Unfortunately, Dr. Babajanov is not here. Ikhtiar Babajanov. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, no, he's not here. Okay. Does anybody want to ask our participants or have a question? I think no. Okay. We will finish our panel discussion because we don't have a question on chat, and I would like to thank all the participants of our seminar and all the participants of the CESS community for their time in providing informative reports and in-depth analysis on the problem of ensuring food security in Central Asia. And we look forward to further cooperation in studying this topic and improving the necessary approach to solving practical problems in this area. And the university team would like to thank you all. And if you have any questions as part of the to deepening our cooperation in this area, don't hesitate to write us to our email. And thank you very much. Maybe does anyone want to say to finish or conclude our panel session? Dear Professor Borgels.
Well, if I can say a few words, if I am not abusing of my talking time. Again, I congratulate you for organizing this seminar. I think it brings forth the different aspects of the food security in Central Asia. And it has very positive elements which show that a change process is ongoing. What is important for the whole region is that all the countries are part of this process. And that's where I think you're inviting other countries to participate and share your views, experiences, very important. On our side, I must say that the European Union and our cooperation program has taken this angle of the agro-food transformation quite late. And in fact, we are now putting emphasis on these aspects: irrigation, vocational education, training, also in this sector. You know that our famous Erasmus Plus program just have agreed to get vocational training in its exchanges in the recent years. So it's no wonder that the countries which are more advanced, like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, can be demonstration examples of how deep, how important, drastic is this transformation to their neighbors. And again, I think that the most you are sharing your experience, the more the countries, your neighbors, will be part of this process, including for water management, for I was talking of this example. No, there is a need to bring together efforts in a synergy and realizing that the situation is never to be like before, it's going to be worse. And so they need to be putting together all the best efforts. And I congratulate, certainly from what I've been able to see and to hear from the speakers, all the efforts ongoing to bring to the rural areas bright prospects for their income, for their production, and see the future in a positive positive perspective despite the difficulties. And again, I come back to my last point. Cooperation between the countries is important, and also in the logistics to make these quality products possible to reach distant markets which are affluent and can afford quality products and bring income all the way down to Kazakhstan. Thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Professor Pierre Borgals. Ikhtiar Babajanov is connecting to us and here is the answer to the question. Main factor to develop insurance market in Central Asia is test new products. The state organization should support research in implementing transfer-oriented research. Thank you very much, Dr. Ikhtiar Babajanov, for your answer. Thank you for all participants else. See you on next seminars, on next online or offline panel session, and be healthy, save yourself. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, see you.
Goodbye, and thank you very much for this excellent discussion.
Thank you.